Hey there, welcome to Fullmelt Extractions. My name is David. If you're a solventless extractor or you'd like to learn how to be one, I'm here to help you gain the knowledge you need to elevate your craft to the next level. Today, I'd like to talk about the 6 things you need to do to have the best chance of producing 5 to 6 star full melt hash. Number 1. First, and most obviously, you have to have good genetics. Genetics are the single biggest factor in producing a quality 5 to 6 star product. You can do everything else right that I'm going to lay out here, and if you have poor genetics, it won't matter. If you're working with something you've run hash from before, or you sourced clones of a known dumper cut, that's one thing. But just remember, regardless of the strain or breeder, if you grow something from seed and it's never been washed for hash, you are not working with the tried and tested genetic. And if that genetic is not up to par, you can do everything else right and still get a substandard result. Second, you need good growing conditions for your plants. Those genetics won't express themselves to the fullest unless they have growing conditions that are at least close to ideal. They don't have to be perfect, and in fact, a little bit of stress can be beneficial. I've heard of people doing things as basic and benign as watering with very cold water to shock the roots, or as extreme and violent as driving an enormous nail through the main stalk of the plant. But generally, for the most part, you want to provide your plants with something close to an optimal environment if you want to achieve the best harvest and extraction result. So make sure everything is on point: lighting, nutrition, ventilation, which includes oxygen for the root zones and CO2 for the leaves. Maintain a good pH in your growing medium, etc. Number 3. I see this one hugely neglected by so many growers, often growers that are quite skilled. You need to make sure the air your plants are breathing and exposed to is extremely clean. There are a couple reasons for this. Firstly, unlike animals, plants literally build their structure out of the carbon they take in from the air, so you want that thing that your plants are taking in, that they're literally building themselves with, to be clean. Secondly, cannabis resin is incredibly sticky and easily picks up airborne contaminants like dust, lint, and skin particles. And the thing about these particles is they're small enough in diameter that your bag screens won't stop them from getting into your final product. The same goes for things like human and pet hair. So I don't let my pets near my plants, especially the flowering ones. And I don't even work on my flowering plants unless I'm wearing a hairnet, beard net, and gloves. Number 4. Work with the freshest material you can source. Yes, you can absolutely make full melt hash from dried material, but when it comes down to it, fresh frozen material is far more likely to produce a full melt product. If you don't have access to fresh frozen or are intimidated by working with it and want to start with something a little bit easier, you can dry your plants for just a few days so that it's not quite live, but neither is it dried and cured. This is also known as zombie tech, not quite live, not quite not live. It retains the majority of the terpene content of fully live material, but it can be a bit easier to work with. Number 5. When doing extractions, don't over-agitate your material. For every person that uses a drill and beater and gets great results, there's 9 more that severely impact their quality in a negative way by doing so. Start with shorter washes and make them longer as you go. But don't think you're off the hook if you hand stir. You can also over-agitate material stirring by hand. It's for this reason that I like to use soft-edged tools like wooden spoons and silicone spatulas, and I shy away from hard-edged metal tools when hand stirring. Even in a washing machine, use of excessive amounts of ice can also have a tendency to grind your material down and deposit contaminant in your hash. You want to use only enough ice to keep your process cold, not so much that it makes it more difficult to stir or agitate your batch, not packed in so thick that it's grinding together. Instead, you want a nice dance of pieces of ice in there, flowing around fairly freely, mainly bashing into your material and knocking off trichomes rather than colliding together and grinding your material between them. The vortex can work for you or against you, but that will come down to your personal choice in technique, stirring tool, and ice amount. Number 6. Learn how to properly sieve your resin. This is one of the most commonly neglected things that I see people do. It's so common for me to see on a post. I was just too busy. I couldn't get around to sieving or microplaning it. This is much like a person going through all the trouble of growing some excellent quality cannabis, taking the time to meticulously hand trim it, and then saying, I'm just too busy. Just too busy. I think I'm going to throw all this in jars and come back to it a couple weeks later. I don't really have the time to burp those jars right now. I am just too busy. Just about anyone with any knowledge of growing understands what a horrible idea that is. I mean, it takes very little time and effort to pull your jars out of storage occasionally and give them a quick burp. Similarly, it takes very little effort or time to properly sieve or microplane your resin pucks. But I've seen more potentially great hash batches than I can recall ruined for this very reason. I personally recommend learning how to sieve because if you don't know how to sieve, you'll most likely be using a microplane, and that's the difference between a flour sifter and a cheese grater. The membrane of the head naturally keeps those flavors in, and piercing it will cause excess loss of flavor and melt through evaporation of terpene content. So preserve melt and use a sieve if you can. But if you have to use a microplane, it's still a far better alternative than trying to dry your resin in puck form. So, if there are any important tips that you think I missed with this list, or hey, you have any questions or comments on the matter, by all means, leave it down below and let's hash it out in the comments section. If you've gotten this far and found this video helpful, by all means, leave a like, and if you're not already, subscribe and hit that notification bell to be alerted of all future uploads. As always, this has been David with Fullmelt Extractions, reminding you to keep up that passion for the hashing. Thanks for watching, and happy hashing.